Hello everyone out there in internet land, I'm Mike from Camp Out There. I use he and they pronouns, and it's time for another queer history lesson. Today we're going to be talking about Imperial China.
Wish that I had.
And because we're going to be talking about so long ago in a culture that is so different from ours, we're going to have to go over to the Context Corner. Welcome to the Context Corner, brought to you by Liu Shihan. So, Imperial China. We're talking about all the way back to the Shang Dynasty, which is 1600 BCE. That's 3,600 years ago. The first thing you need to know about that time and that place is that homosexuality and bisexuality was so common that it wouldn't even be a thing that people used as part of their identity. Like today, I would say, "Hi, I'm Mike, I'm pansexual, I'm part of the queer community, I'm a surfer, I'm a guitarist." Back then, saying, "Hi, I'm pansexual" would sound something like,
"Hi, I'm Michelle, and sometimes I like to wear hats. Sometimes I wear them forward, sometimes I wear them backwards, don't really have a preference."
And people would be like, "Yeah, lots of people wear hats. Why would you say that? That's a weird thing to just say." And also, marriage was almost always between a man and a woman, but it wasn't equated with love like it is in our culture. Back then, it was more of a duty that you had to the empire to create a family and raise children. Marriage was seen more of like a thing everybody eventually has to do, just how we think of like, oh, everybody eventually has to go to school and everyone eventually has to get a job. And because marriage was so removed from love and sexuality, that even married straight and queer people would continue to have extramarital romantic relationships outside of their marriage. And back then that was totally cool in the eyes of the culture at large. Back to you, Desk Mike. Thanks, Mike. Pretty neat. So the bad news is that because most of the people that held power in China in the past were men, most of the stories that we have about queers in Imperial China are men. Because it seems that no corner of the globe or page from history is free from the patriarchy. So let's go all the way back to the Zhou dynasty. So all the way back then, homosexuality in the courts was just expected. There are hundreds of stories of man-on-man love in the courts of the emperor, the courts of high officials, and in the military. Homosexuality was so prevalent in China at the time that when Chinese sailors landed in the Philippines, that the Spanish colonists who lived there were blaming the Chinese for bringing homosexuality and popularizing it among the native population. That's a whole nother story, but spoiler alert, the native Filipinos had their own queer culture going on. It was also so prevalent that in the oldest written Chinese text that still exists today, features a poem about two male warriors in love. So now comes the story of the bitten peach. Mizi Shah was a favorite of the Duke Ling of Wei. One day, Mizi Shah bit into a peach that was so delicious, he just had to share it with his favorite emperor. So he ran all the way to the palace so he could share it with his boy toy. And the Duke was like, "Oh, you are so cute for wanting to share a tasty peach with me." That might not seem like that big of a story, but it was a big enough story back then for them to write it down 3,000 years ago and have it still be a thing we know about today. So this one's my favorite, the King of Wei and Long Yang. So the king and Long were out fishing one day, and Long catches a couple fish. He gets like one little fish, and then he catches a bigger fish, and he's like, "Oh," and then he just starts crying. And the king's like, "Why are you crying, my love?" And Long said, "When I first caught the fish, at first I was extremely pleased, but afterward I sought a larger fish, so I wanted to throw back the first fish that I caught. There are innumerable beauties in the world. Upon hearing of my receiving your favor, surely they will lift up their hems of their robes so that they can hasten to you. I am also a previously caught fish. I will also be thrown back. How can I keep from crying?" Because of this incident, King Wei announced to the world, anyone who dares speak of other beauties will be executed along with his whole family. So basically, the king of the land said, if any of you says my boyfriend isn't the prettiest boy in the whole world, I'm gonna kill you. Moving on to the Han Dynasty, 10 of the 13 kings of Han also had male lovers as well as wives. So that's like 2,000 years of bisexuality. Woo. Emperor Ai, who, quote, by nature did not care for women, aka straight up gay, Emperor Ai was once sleeping with his lover Dong Xuan, and Dong Xuan was like all up on his arm like this, and the emperor got called away to a meeting. But he so did not want to interrupt his boy toy's beauty sleep that instead of waking him up, he cut his sleeve off and snuck away. This was such a famous event that the passion of the cut sleeve was used as a euphemism for homosexuality for thousands of years after, and common folk even cut their sleeves off as a copycat fashion statement. Dong Xuan was loved by the Emperor Ai so much that on Emperor Ai's deathbed, he tried to give his kingdom away to Dong Xuan. And everyone was like, no, that's not how empires work, because of historical classism. Now the Three Kingdoms and Six Dynasties period. Quote, from the Xinyang and Taikang periods of the Western Jin Dynasty forward, male favoritism flourished considerably and was extensive as attraction to women. All of the gentlemen and officials esteemed it. All men in the realm followed this fashion to the extent that husbands and wives were estranged, and resentful unmarried women became jealous. So now moving forward to the Ming Dynasty, this is where writing became more prevalent. There's more evidence of things like lower class homosexuality and female homosexuality in plays, stories, and prose. Including one famous comedy where a man and a woman on their wedding night can't figure out how to make a baby because they spent their entire single lives completely gay. Now we're going to head over to Michelle at the Queer Gal Fact Corral.
What?
The Queer Gal Fact Corral.
Fact corral.
You know, like where you corral all the facts about queer gals.
Did that just come to you?
Yeah.
Oh my god, so good. There is one historical account of a married woman who loved another woman so much that she convinced her husband to hire this woman as a live-in maid so that they could be together basically forever. True love. This was a common type of situation, as female homosexuality was celebrated and considered inevitable. There was legal gay marriage for lesbians, and even group marriages where 2 or more women would be married together. In these lesbian marriages, women could adopt daughters and even leave them property to inherit, which was otherwise exclusively a male right. I want a group marriage and leave my daughter all the money. There was a famous large social group of women during the Qing dynasty called the mirror polishing gang, who rejected men and only took female lovers. Sweet.
Iconic. In the Ming and Qing dynasties, they also had male gay marriage. Kind of. It was exclusive to a relationship where there was a younger man and an older man. Because everyone was still expected to have a heterosexual marriage eventually because of familial and childbearing reasons, the way that these marriages would work it would be just like a heterosexual marriage. They'd have a ceremony and a party, and your friends would come over, and then you'd get a house together, and they could even adopt kids. But after about 20 years, the marriages would be dissolved so that the younger man, now like in his 40s or 50s, could then have a heterosexual marriage to do all the other stuff they're supposed to do. As always, there's so much more we could talk about, and in this case, literally thousands of years worth of stuff to talk about, but I want to keep these videos short. So in recent news, much later in the 1950s, homosexuality eventually became criminalized by the Mao leadership. Eventually in 1997, all mentions of homosexuality in criminal law kind of just disappeared. And in 2001, we got a major win when the Chinese Society of Psychiatry declassified homosexuality as a mental disorder. And on May 17, 2016, modern Chinese history was made when, after a 6-month-long lawsuit against the Bureau of Civil Affairs, Hu Minglang and Sun Weilin became modern China's first gay married couple. And since then, groups all over the country have been making all kinds of progress in the areas of LGBTQIA+ rights in general. That's all from us today. I will see you next week. I love you. Bye.